Hello, welcome to Hauser. This is Mike Hauser. I'm the host of Hauser. Um, I will be your categorically impaired stud muffin for this evening. Today I saw a shirt that said Old Geezer, formerly known as Stud Muffin. And I thought to myself, I want to be a stud muffin really bad. Um, I'm not sure how I would go about this. Um, it seems like the possibility of becoming soft in some places and hard in other places, or soft on some occasions and hard on other occasions. Um, I don't want to just reduce this to some kind of um, scale of um, making use of brash sensibility, me in leopard print, something or other. I feel in my heart that I can be a stud muffin. I am a stud muffin all night and every morning and most afternoons. Um, when I nap, I feel myself this napping stud muffin, like America before World War II, a sleeping stud muffin. Over there, a stud muffin on the horizon, made one with the vanishing point, a stud muffin. This is the prepared statement for June 28th. Guys, how long have we been here? This is kind of a pinch, I mean. I almost wrote pitch there. In fact, I did, and said it. Do we think we should abide reality? Confiscate used porn? For some reason, I am using scare quotes in a season of scare quotes in a fashion reserved, forthright yet estranged from promising ends. My ends split the same difference as yours. Do you guys believe my tangible figurations of some tinkling Marxism? Or do you decide, while I'm in the bathroom, that I am a reprobate? I almost wrote rebrobate or rebrobate, and in fact did in this writing, which is pretty much free associative. I sometimes veer into a kind of prosody that is belied by a propensity to squeeze adjectives into a pleasure dome of structuralized and aphoristic sociability. And denial of pleasure is a baked ziti resting furtively against the leg of some really good 90s British psych rock. I relinquish upkeep of my desire for a bigger portion in favor of releasing my butt steam into a cloned aesthetic. That is, I reduce my candidness so to bring a fuller cache of winsome frangibility your way. I stay with where animals go. Here on the bus to critique a mind is mathematically a clownish proposition, a conceit we each feel from a different position, though durationally similar in its meshed associations, its poignant acoustic fade-ins, and its lousy noodle salad consistency. I want to start sometimes with a bridge more literal than this one. But laterally, not to mention relationally, our focuses intercede in various administration of corn-shucking diction toward the end of a taint, miserable and phosphorescent. Imagine a phosphorescent, needful taint. a poem, in fact, filled with need. Belly for promising watchwords will go untainted in the preceding command. It's like a system of checks and balances for your taint. It's like your shucked command of literally every planned obsolescence torn affray. We mention the time you bring comfortable status into a bolt of recognition of John Davidson's hammer-shorn hair. Do we ignore this hammer-shorn hair, this feat of modernism and self-belief at our own risks? I believe so. I believe it will become applicable soon. In the nest of my hair, I have 1,000 shouting ends in leopard print, avarice laid, bedded in an equally pragmatic fashion as my will. As my want, which is a will toward any end you like, death command or cold shower of the worldwide crash greeting you, alluring in its unintended effect on your life, veering ever Dallasward, sexting a lot more of these dreamland honeys you mentioned earlier. I'm troffiting minced potables, folding Kim Kardashian's eerie symmetry with the known world of filmed images that habitate a person. I mean, I will accept another chance at the most lasting flow of cheesy punted mutually applicable Martin Scorsese apps dripping down the side of spectral naughty orgasm itself. I put porno everywhere I am to make sure it collapses into an icon along the vanishing point of my account balances. I am not doing too good, bro. Bro span. Put it in your wheelie journal, bro. Put it on your desktop, bro. Put it in your Canon, bro. That is like the ultimate dream. When I saw them, it was like utopia. They are like, building huge pyramids in cyberspace right now that most people don't know about, but they oughta, because a lot of them have this same relationally functional symmetry to our lives as does the symmetry of Kim Kardashian's toothless smile to the curve of her chin. I mean, this stuff, free associative, loaded with plaints of pliant freaks, in disclosure of the data gumbo, my brick as frick approach, be minded as ever by a disembodied surveillance monkey called Winston Unupset Expression. This stuff congeals like your famous green overseas coverage brownies. Guys, we miss, if we miss at all, the gossip granting goslings of pure energy, a place in a cable channel countdown of the most dressed bled people vying for your various liquids. Here is a basic thought I had about Fran Abati's book, Troy Unincorporated. It recognizes the elemental nature of the symbolic connection between zombies and shopping malls. I knew Fran first as a teacher, then as a poet, and a really good one at that. At a reading she gave in the UWM Union, which I don't remember what it's called, I kept reacting in a way that I wanted to vocalize, like saying, "Oh!" or "Oh!" but couldn't because I was afraid of embarrassing myself. I first met Fran in 2000. It was a women's poetry course. We read Sharon Olds, Jory Graham, Joy Harjo. Who else? A collation of some photocopies of others, including Alice Notley, Anne Waldman, Elaine Equi. I was eager to compare every poet with Lorca then, and I do so with Elaine, and I did so. I don't think I would now. I did so with Elaine Equi. Yikes, right? I mean, I don't know. I was young. And if I am young enough to tumble forth these boatloads of devotion, my butt shit, just my butt, will in fact go numb. No, I mean, I'm sitting here in Altera, you guys, and for those of you with penises, ever had that thing go numb? Yikes, paging Dr. Freud. bro, I can't agree with your assertion. I don't really think Garcia Lorca would have been a juggalo. I just don't think that the evidence is there to support it. I mean, I even have reservations about the idea that somehow he was proto juggalo. Um, I mean, I think that while it was kind of a big thing in professional wrestling to quote Lorca, some would say ad nauseum, during the late 80s and early 90s. And the ironic thing is, they, in their wrestling monologues, would usually quote from around the period of the Gypsy Ballads, and they would almost never quote Poet in New York, which was clearly the more hardcore of the two texts. And look, I mean, Juggalo, I mean, Garcia Lorca will come along with you. He'll tag along with you and your friends, and he's gonna be kind of a dick to him. And it's not just because he doesn't really like um, cities per se. He much prefers mythology and games of telephone. And at the risk of sounding facetious, I think he's just not a city guy. He prefers big, big time sensuality. And I think he could be kind of a diva, but I think what's at the crux of why Garcia Lorca tends to be kind of a dick to your friends when he hangs out with them is that he just has had a lot of experience in his life with people doing this kind of ritual that of like, I will get this round and you get the next round. And he's had a lot of scarves disappear over the years. On the bus today, there was a sign that said, "Please take survey." And I misread the sign as saying, "Please save Turkey." In the cultural studies area, I thought, how isn't it interesting how there are two movies, The Last of the Mohicans starring Daniel Day-Lewis and Taken starring Liam Neeson. Now, in The Last of the Mohicans starring Daniel Day-Lewis, there's a part where Daniel Day-Lewis is saying to the actress, I believe Madeline Stowe, he says, "I will find you." And in the context of the film, this means I will find you because I love you, and I will not abide being without you. In the film Taken, Liam Neeson plays a guy who he's like an ex-hitman. I think I've never actually seen the movie. He gets a call from these guys, these dudes, these bros, and they're like, "We got your daughter, bro." And Liam Neeson, his response to them is, I think his response to them is something like, "Let them go right now." And, oh, that's terrible. "And no harm will come to you. If any harm comes to her, I will find you and I will kill you." So it was just, I don't know, interesting to me in kind of a retarded, sorry, I'm not supposed to say that, way, how you have these two kind of Irish guys who are these real Irish stud muffins, and also real thespians, which somehow only compounds their stud muffinry. And it goes from I will find you because I love you to I will find you because I want to kill you. Um, and uh, this is the part of the show. Uh, Nothing's wrong. I'm just enjoying a silence with you. There's nothing wrong. Everything's totally hunky dory. I'd like to share a short um, YouTube playlist with you, um, and it's going to be happening in installments. Um, my guest Fran Abadi just arrived, and just come on up here, Fran. And um, so yeah, let's. The water is for you,
Yes.
and there's headphones there so you can hear yourself. My guest tonight is the poet Fran Abadi, recent publisher. I'm sorry, it wasn't self-published. Fran is the
Okay.
author of the recently
was-
published by University of Chicago Press, Troy Unincorporated. And so just say hi, Fran.
Hi.
It's really great to have Fran here.
It's really great to be here. Let me just get these things.
Are they not? Are they too tight? They're not too tight, are they? They have like different headphones here every week. It's
I have a tiny head, Mike.
okay.
They'll be fine.
Okay. So, can you hear yourself? Could you just speak into the microphone a little bit?
I can hear myself. Can
Okay.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you too.
Oh, good.
It's good to hear your voice.
Mm,
Thank you for coming tonight, Fran.
thanks for having me, Mike. I'm so impressed by your show.
Thank you.
You've got a great radio voice. How many thousands of people have told you that?
I like 3 or 4, I think.
Okay.
You're not the first person,
Hmm.
and it's not always easy for me to take compliments, but I just kind of say thank you.
You're welcome. Good job.
Yeah, I mean I can't really take credit for it. It's kind of like just being endowed with something,
It's a gift.
you know. Yeah, it's a gift from God.
Yes.
So, would you like to talk to us a little bit about the book first, or read first, or?
Sure. No, I'd love to talk first.
Okay, just a little bit of background because
Yeah.
it's based on a Chaucer story.
It
or-
is. I have a whole set intro that I've been reading lately because the thing about reading this to an audience is I have to assume that about 90% of the people in the audience have never read Chaucer's Troilus and Crusade.
Uh-huh.
So, I mean, it's so old. I mean, he wrote it in the 14th century, but he stole the plot from Boccaccio,
Uh-huh.
and his tale was based on a 12th century poem by Benoit de Samoir. Oh my God, I think I got that right finally.
Sounded great.
Thank you. I've been practicing. I know it's terrible, isn't it? Though, but it's true. There are all
Uh-huh.
these things that I've had to learn how to say, like Pliny. I thought it was Pliny,
Oh,
but it's Pliny.
I thought you were saying plenty.
No, Pliny.
Pliny.
Yeah.
I
know.
thought it was Pliny too.
I know, I did too, and I looked it up, and I was like, no, really? I'm still not even sure. Anyway, so that and Benoit de Saint-Noir, I'll say it one more time. Okay, who Boccaccio stole it from, and
Uh-huh.
the plot's really simple. I mean, it's like boy meets girl, boy loses girl, boy throws himself into the Trojan War and gets killed by Achilles.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's basically it. But the reason why Crusade has to leave Troilus is because she gets traded for a prisoner of war. Her father is a prophet, Calchas. And so, because he can see into the future,
Uh-huh.
he sees that Troy is going to fall, and he joins the Greeks. So he's a traitor. And, he kind of wants his daughter back, and the Trojans have a prisoner of war, and so they do a trade. So she's got to leave Troilus, and then she goes to the Greek camp and falls in love with a Greek warrior named Diomedes. And when Troilus hears about that, he's just crazy, sad, mad, and just throws himself into war and gets killed. End of story.
Wow.
It's a tragedy.
It is.
It's actually apparently the first time in English poetry that the word tragedy is used. But it's funny too.
Huh.
Chaucer's really funny. I mean, he's bawdy, he's
Is he perhaps tragicomic?
I
As
I would kind of call this tragic comic, although I
Uh-huh.
don't think technically I suppose it is, but it's got just great comic elements. I mean, Pandarus, who gets Troilus and Crusade and together and actually ends up throwing Troilus in bed with Crusade because Troilus is like such a lump. He's like a mopey lump and he
Uh-huh.
can't do anything. And so finally, Pandarus, who also happens to be Crusade's uncle, which is kind of creepy.
Uh-huh.
But anyway, and Troilus's best friend, just literally throws Troilus into bed with Crusade and
Uh-huh.
says, "Okay, come on, man, like just do it. This is
Yeah.
getting ridiculous." So it's really it's quite entertaining. Yeah.
So the book is set in Troy, Wisconsin.
Mm-hmm.
Is this somewhere where you've spent a lot of time?
No, I have to be honest. I live in Beloit most of the time, and my husband lives here in Milwaukee, and I have some Milwaukee roots as I went to school here in 1997, lived here for 7 years getting my PhD. And
Uh-huh.
basically, I do a lot of traveling back and forth between Beloit and Milwaukee, and that's Highway 43. And Troy is kind of right in the middle of it. Also, it reminds me of a place where I spent a lot of time growing up as a kid, and that's Burlington. But I didn't
Okay.
want to set it in Burlington because that was almost too close to home. So I set
Uh-huh.
it in Troy. Yeah. I appropriated both the plot and the place.
Nothing wrong with that.
No, I hope not.
Do you want to read some poems?
Sure. Yeah,
Okay.
and you just tell me when I'm getting if I'm quiet or, if you can hear me okay, if I'm running out of time.
Well, I can hear you pretty well now, and you're at a good distance from the
Okay.
microphone, so I think
Yeah,
I think we're good to go.
Just coach me. So, aside from the usual characters that I've stolen from Chaucer, Troilus and Crusade and Pandarus, there's a narrator who I've also kind of stolen in Chaucer. That's a male. In my version, that's not a male. So this is one of the first poems in the book, and it's there are no titles in the book. It's just like who's speaking, and I somebody said I need to get sock puppets, and then I won't have to say narrator. But narrator of 8th grade, tried reading the comedies as if to live in the forest, naming the flowers and flighty things, when really I was a fat girl hurtling the length of a shotgun apartment and crying bullet when she leapt. The photo recalls me thus: a vellum, a gulping sheen, a blot under the crucifix in her red velvet blazer. Homeroom, paper plates, lemonade, someone's pink candled birthday cake. I stayed at my desk, penned, making real progress. Once she watched a house burn and thought a commotion of flamingos. Once the spring trees cast such delirious nets, she left someone for someone with his hand on the next big thing, and that was sexy. Dear so and so, I wanted to be a real scholar. Then March, then April signed its proclamation of cloud. So I think that kind of speaks to how I'm not actually a Chaucer scholar, but I kind of fell in love with the story, and it's kind of
Mhm.
a funny thing. Um, as I mentioned, Troilus is sort of a mope, and this is a Troilus poem. He is. He just cries half the time, but it really does get funny. Like the joke you tell again and again that's not funny to begin with. Yeah. Okay. Troilus. Sniffly weather, the sky all prologue. Lean hard from the hilltop so the wind can catch you. I stayed in bed, Pandarus quoting old potions from Pliny to make me laugh. Wolf's liver and thin wine, lard of a sow fed upon grass, or was it the flesh of a she-ass taken in broth? My ribs quaked so, coughing, I imagined the boat of me after. The river crumpled like sheets someone couldn't crawl from fast enough. I told him Pliny's also known for choking to death on the ashes of Mount Vesuvius. I told him Crusade at the picnic in the rain in her black dress. I stayed in bed and I think I slept, Pandarus narrating my dreams like a radio play I got in fits. Meat and the mouth and the hand that fed you, petal shroud, door in the garden, harbinger, harbinger, the dial sliding back and forth until when I woke the windows were frost cast and he was on his feet, muttering something about how we had a house to build now. He handed me the pewter vase from the nightstand to spit up in. Something dry down there. Fly husk, I guessed, or maybe an old stem bit. No, a scrap of paper, balled tight. Hocus pocus. Here is the body. I fished it out. I ate it. Should I read a couple more?
Yeah,
Should I
yeah,
keep going?
yeah. Keep going.
I'll keep going. Um, this character does not appear in Chaucer's poem, but for some reason I just felt like Psyche would be a good addition to the book. I'm not sure why I was drawn to her as a mythological figure, but I also feel like she sort of does harken back to the Greek origins of Troilus and Crusade because originally Troilus is just a briefly mentioned character in the Trojan War.
Hmm.
And then his story just gets built upon and built upon and stolen and stolen and stolen. So I thought Psyche was not going out too much on a limb to include her. She's probably the only, aside from a chorus, which certainly isn't in Chaucer's poem, um, the two characters that I added. Psyche. On the walls, the usual Americana. The place was half under the sidewalk. I'd nearly missed the 5 cement stairs down. In those lake cities, dusk affords year round a winterish distance. It was winter anyway, very. Every cardinal like the throat in the pulse of sleep. She sleeps, she slept, she will sleep. When I woke, it was like a holiday. Everything was shut. You should eat something, the voice said. Not yours, my body, maybe. But I'm a traveler, I said. I travel. I do not want. So I ordered a chili dog, which I particularly did not want. I sat at the counter under the girl in polka dots and white gloves, sharing a Coke with Mr. Sailor, her never lover. A commonplace to feel meant for something. Another to feel unmeant, like the boat's gone, that thought you belonged to. The wax cup of root beer in my hand was as cold as my hand. I could neither warm nor relinquish it. Go on, the voice said. Eat. Not yours. Some ant god, maybe, shepherd of another petty hour. I wiped mustard from the tips of my hair, onions from my lap. I licked someone else's stray poppy seeds from my fingers. In the wax paper lined plastic basket, jetsam, a wreckage of napkins. Between such crafts we bide. Chaucer, as I mentioned, is really bawdy, so if you hear anything that could possibly sound like a double entendre,
Probably is.
God, I hope so. Maybe it's a single entendre. It's so obvious. I don't even know.
It's a thin line,
It's a thin line between
double and
yes.
single.
Yep. In my version of the tale, Pandarus is a car mechanic. So
Mm-hmm.
this is a Pandarus poem. We made a sand woman on Harrington Beach in junior high, a curving groove filled with two mounds, a hole I poured half my coke in. Double, double, toil and trouble. I bet when Troilus comes, it's still some giant wave thrusting him on shore, not ours. Weed roped piles of alewives gulls have reaped the eyes from. Bougainvillea, starfish, pink sand. I know, I shouldn't think this. It's my job, I said. I fix things. We were in line for popcorn, Crusade saving our seats, admiring her nails, probably. I'd chosen the movie Zombies, but funny, so post credits we wouldn't mistake the strip mall's parking lot for one of hell's minor antechambers. Troilus less in the movie than in her hair, and well begun is half done, I thought. When he surfaced, the look on his face looked permanent, a portrait governed. I gave him the keys, said I wanted to walk, just drop it tomorrow at the shop. That was the Z car I sold last month. It didn't idle so much as strain to be let off leash. I figured she'd be impressed if he could handle it. I had the valve job on the Volvo to get to in the morning, and I wanted to think about the movie. Guy ends up keeping his zombied friend in the shed to play video games with. A small, cold, windless rain, no bugs crooning. Yes, it's only a canvas sky hanging over a muslin tree to the streetlights. No raccoon scuffle in the garbage cans. We're greedy, if brief.
So I wanted to ask you, in the poems
Yeah.
um, that are narrated by the narrator,
Mm-hmm.
where the speaker is the narrator, um, there is some um, biographical information. Is
Perhaps.
there not?
Maybe. Why do you ask?
You're not saying?
Was I a fat girl? Yes, it's true. Did I try reading Shakespeare's comedies at an early age? Yes,
Mm-hmm.
definitely. Did that work? No. Yeah, no. There's definitely. There's a lot of things in the narrator that are, I guess what you would call factual, um, and also emotionally true. But
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, I mean, I would think that those authors that you mentioned, Chaucer, Chaucer going back,
Mm.
they some biographical data from their lives must have ended up into it, and it's kind of interesting how these myths survive over all these centuries, and um, but we retain the sort of, I don't know, the substance. I mean, what is
Yeah.
that substance that I mean, is it just a constant erasure and the names survive only, or
And why are we so drawn to it
yeah,
again and again and filling it in with our own details?
yeah,
It's a great question. I mean, I had just an immense amount of trepidation when I found myself in the midst of this. I hate to use the word project,
uh
but
huh.
whatever. Let's use the word project because I was like,
Why
a,
not?
I know, yeah, like how dare I like steal Chaucer? That's just so audacious and stupid. And B, like I just kind of find the whole process of rewriting myths. I don't know. It's just been done so
Yeah,
much, and I didn't really want to do it, but I just found myself so compelled to continue with it.
uh huh,
Um, but then I also wanted to talk about that compulsion, So I think the
yeah,
narrator poems sort of reveal a little bit of the speaker, because it's definitely not me exactly, but the speaker's relationship to the tale itself, to Chaucer. And I thought, well, I'm going to keep those. I'm going to keep writing those too, and see how they fit in this book,
yeah.
because it sort of added a different perspective slash dimension slash take on the whole project. Again, that word. Yeah.
I mean, it seems like really key to kind of forefront that because you can't um, translate, adapt, appropriate, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Anytime you're dealing with a source text, it's coming through the sort of
Yeah.
mesh substance
There's
of your life.
right. There's a
You know,
filter.
yeah.
Yeah. Totally.
Want to read some more?
Sure. Sure. And actually, this is a poem that references sort of the idea of narrative or plot a little bit directly, the way a few of these poems do. Crusade. Like the friend following you into the thrall of the park by night, through the gazebo and the swings to the slide, that no you go caught in my hair. A gray epic, rain smoke, stars in the black gutters when it cleared. My dreams grew big with whales and buck-teethed women whose veiled hats kept them kindly at a distance. I opened all the doors in the house to collect light. Pale doors, pale floors. I wanted to turn ghost or water. He's mopey, the story said one morning, but you like him, right? I was eating breakfast, recounting on the neighbor's lawn the thinning herd of plastic deer. Tell me more about the salt trade. I'm bored, I said. Tell me anything. The cat settled into her pillow on the bed. Juice stung my wrist. The story had stolen another bite of nectarine. It liked making me blush. It liked the ribbon shoelaces on my high heels, certain frequencies of cloud, the parrot who said only, "No more good time, Charlie, for you," before he came, after he left, the girls at the beauty school gossiping over their mannequin heads.
Want to keep going?
Sure.
Yeah, plenty of time.
Okay, good. You can just tell me to.
You're not too hot, are you?
Oh,
It's a hot one.
we're all too hot. Oh Lord, my cats are just sitting at home, like giving me their little fingers. Like,
Oh,
how
furry
come your
mammals.
yeah? How come your air conditioning isn't better? Like, I'm sorry. I'm
Cats are
so
not.
sorry. I know.
Yeah.
Luckily, one of them went to the vet today. They had really good air conditioning for like an hour. He was like, "Oh, finally, real people."
Well, that's what you do on a hot day. You
You
go
go to
to
the
the
vet.
library or the movies or the vet.
Or the vet. I know.
You just find somewhere that's
I
air
know.
conditioning.
Actually, this is nice. I'm getting so acclimated. It's been such a warm spring. I'm like, all right, this is cool. It's not 100 now, so I'm fine.
Yeah.
Um. So at this point in the book, Troilus is getting really despondent. Not that he was never despondent to begin with, but Crusade has left and gone to live with her father, who I could not translate the Trojan War. I mean, it was just something, the background of the war itself, I just couldn't make contemporary. I mean, it was like, well, I just didn't feel comfortable enough making into a real war like the Iraq, war, or like any other kind of like actual tangible.
Yeah.
I just didn't feel comfortable doing it. So I needed a reason why. I think the war for Troilus is definitely more internal in my book, and yet I needed a reason to get Crusade out of town. So Crusade's father breaks his hip, and she has to return home to another town, stay with him, and help him out. And so this poem takes place after that happens. Troilus. I watched him paint all he could draw, waves and fish and gulls on the walls of an abandoned beach house with a stick tipped in ash, the points of his spine shining in his smooth back, black hair fanning his olive neck. I didn't know why I wanted to be him and was not. A commonplace memory as X, as wind at the door again. Another, to make of the mind a wolfishness, snarl of if, only if. For solace, I've been reading taxonomy. In the history of animals, for example, Aristotle says straight eyebrows signal a soft disposition. He doesn't mention joined. That hers were suggests, Pandarus says, a lack of discretion. I told him, it's rehearsal. 8 pills, each to its own thimble. 8 half-full tumblers of vodka, casting wavery halos down the kitchen table like the sun-struck rungs of the ladder off the pier. When I hit the silt carpet, I mean to kick hard, to clear the roof. By then, I want everything familiar as epitaph, the wind and the water lights, and the little girl who soldiers down the street each morning at 10, arms swinging, hands rigid. Today, she's a brave messenger in a green skirt and a bike helmet. We were beautiful. Our heads were glass. One of the fun things, at least for me, with this was sort of, despite the fact that I'm not a Chaucer scholar, kind of throwing myself into as much reading as I could do about the poem,
Mm-hmm.
and there were certain lines that just didn't translate real well from the Middle English, and I found them fascinating and tried working with them a little bit. And the last line of that poem is one of those. We were beautiful, our heads were glass. Is a total mistranslation, but something I was trying to get at that the conventional translation just doesn't quite get to. And yeah, so there's sort of lines like that throughout the book that I've sort of misappropriated, mistranslated in my
Mm-hmm.
own. That was fun.
So that's something that I wanted to ask about.
Mm-hmm.
Is it worth reading Chaucer in translation,
Mm.
or
It
is it a better experience?
it
Just
is,
kind of
but it's way better in Middle English. Way
yeah,
way better in Chaucer's language. I totally recommend having two versions. Um, it's a pain, but to go back and forth
yeah,
between a contemporary translation and the original, I think is really worth it because I mean, like any poetry, like something gets lost in translation. I mean,
right,
you'd think it's just, well, we're just updating the English, but no, sounds and rhythm and just words that
yeah,
we're not familiar with, and they're just so lovely. Yeah,
yeah. You have to kind of rewrite it in a way,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Um, couple more. Sound good?
yeah. We have plenty of time
Okay,
if you
you can
want to
all.
read for about 5 or 10 more minutes.
Um, I might. Since you mentioned the narrator poems, I think I'll read a narrator poem um, before I read another crusade poem. Um, it's funny because a lot of the narrator poems are actually set more in Milwaukee and Chicago than around Troy or Beloit. I mean,
Uh
or
huh.
yeah, um, they have a little bit of a different voice. Narrator. We take the Hone Bridge home from the airport. The road Salt Mountain to the west, asleep under its tarp. You miss the sun so long, and then, my ex once said, it wastes the mirrors. Everywhere now, a girl's hands are blossoming on steering wheels. Strong thighed, my friends and I rode those boys like bronze seahorses. Smoke, fire, wind, water promised the restoration company on the harbor. In Kyoto, we saw the thunder god and the wind god fierce equally on their cloud platforms. And I don't regret the afternoon spent at the hotel's sidewalk cafe pretending over beer we were people we wouldn't like, writing postcards. Conquered Subway, sold the new novel. You can travel with kids, sure, someone said, but it's easier not to have them. only houseless and unadorned. Listen, you have to name the exact point at which it's like high school always. How is the next assignment? You arrived at this sorry equation. Repentance, the famous author wrote, belongs to another world. That last is Jam Coetzee from Disgrace. I don't know if you've read that novel.
I haven't.
It's good. Yeah. Not to say that you have to.
No, no. It made me want to check it out.
Um, I'll read a couple more, and then if you have any questions or whatever, we can talk. Okay.
Okay.
So this is Crusade. In having moved, and she's met Diomedes, although he's not mentioned in this poem. Um, Crusade. It was like the old world sent me a letter. Darling, if you're reading this, it means it did. I was. My life in another licked river city, graffitied bandshell, water tower, cars. On a block of cream brick buildings, the sky had moved into a storefront whose handwritten sign keeps promising hometown diner, open soon, new owners. The old ones haven't unset the tables. Scuffed plastic cups on ketchup smeared placemats, empty coffee pots stuck to the counter. Goodbye, Book of Consolation. Goodbye, Goldfinch, who'd rather snuff itself in the maple than let me see you. There are lies and there are promises, Pandurus told me one afternoon at his shop. He was letting the oil drain from a half dismantled motorcycle hunched over the pan like a stricken jackal. White wine on ice in a plastic cup, and the garage doors open, my lawn chair trembling on the foot wide lip of broken concrete he called the patio. Wasps own the eaves over me, bees the field of Queen Anne's lace and goldenrod, tall as my neck where I'd pee later. Afternoon, evening, Troilus came, and when the waxing moon cleared the neighbor's roof, Pandurus brought his father's old telescope out. Except in books, I'd never seen the surface, how precisely etched and sequined and sad-laked, and the craters, their edges flaring like the spokes of bone crowns, I said, like the moon's a vault, and the kings will come back for them. One more real short one.
Yeah,
Okay.
that'll work.
You know you can kick me out anytime. I'm
Kick
kidding.
you out.
I'm teasing, sweetie. Okay. So I mentioned that there was a chorus in the book, and it's completely not in Chaucer, but I had fun with it. Again, it was another distancing kind of move in some ways on the book's part. I mean, it was like, okay, here's Chaucer's story, but here's something else, and here's something else. Oh, actually, I'm going to read a different poem. God, I'm sorry. I'm going to read a poem by Cassandra.
Okay.
This is Cassandra in Chaucer's book is Troilus's sister. Yeah, the seer Cassandra. So that was fun to work with, a lot. And I wish I'd written more poems from her point of view. Actually, Cassandra. Now the accrual of was at Booth Lake, the body on the gold rocks in the shallows, and the horses grazing slant on that hill. Every lake owns its own tragedy. One ate water, one shut yellow eyes to the sun. One said each star finds its best socket. One said I didn't anyway have a daylight face. One was a pose and pause and lily pining. One the radiant landing. One said the sentence is the memory of the evoked world. One said Orchard Street, Swamp Angel Road. One said a window or scrap of graph paper drawn in cloud. One was lithe-tongued virtually. One said no one asked you to sing. One sang, here is a grass blade, here is the sail distance calls faith. One said, oh, but they never looked like real horses. One said, swallows, the architects of. One said, it isn't words the mouth wants. One said occasion. One said,
I love that one. I
thanks,
read that
Mike.
one earlier today.
Yeah.
You really seem
No
to
problem.
take the tale and imbue it with your own kind of style, your own kind of prosody.
I hope so. I guess. Although if I could write like Chaucer, I'd probably love that too. Let's face
Uh
it.
are you ever gonna translate the Canterbury Tales?
Hell no. No, no, no. I do love them, but no. I don't know why
Uh-huh.
this story just, back when I was in grad school, I think it was 1999
Uh-huh.
ish. I took a Chaucer for Writers with Xavier Barron,
Mhm.
and that
I
was,
had a class with him.
yeah, he was
Yeah.
great, and that class was so much fun.
Does he still teach? Do you know?
No, I think he's retired. I
Oh,
have to
okay.
find out because I have a book to send him. Because it's
Oh,
sort of his fault that this book is this book.
right.
Yeah.
You mentioned him in the
Yeah, I
acknowledgments.
do. I do. He had, one of the assignments we had to do is updating. I'm not sure if we had a choice. I think it was Troilus and Crusade. We had to translate it into contemporary English, but keep the rhyme royale, which was a huge challenge. Or maybe we had some
What is
leeway with
the
that.
rhyme royale?
It's how Chaucer originally wrote
Is
the.
that the
Yeah, it's a
rhyme
form.
scheme?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, which I won't go into
The
here. But
rhyme royale.
yes,
Wow.
and that
That's
was.
so rich sounding.
I know, doesn't it sound
So,
great? I know,
yeah.
it's so fancy.
Grand.
Fancy pants. I know. But I did that, and it wasn't hugely long. I mean, I think I did maybe, I don't know if it was 8 pages. I mean, Chaucer's poem's pretty long, but it was a lot of work, and only one line from that poem is in this book. It's rain, smoke, stars. It's not even a line; it's a phrase.
Mhm.
Um, I don't even have a copy of that poem anymore, but obviously it stuck with me because years later I found myself returning to the characters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you is it limited to Chaucer your interest or medieval literature in general? Does
Thanks.
it
No, that's a great question. And
interest
actually,
you?
somebody asked me recently why I didn't take on Shakespeare's Troilus and Cressida for this.
Uh-huh.
And I said, well, I feel like this book is it's like I think I called it from an epigraph. It's a half completed love letter to Chaucer.
Uh-huh.
Um, yeah.
Well, that's interesting because I was going to ask you, are you writing are you writing from character or the tale or addressing Chaucer or maybe a mix of all three?
I, I, th- I think in some ways the tale, the plot itself, let's face it, is kind of dull. The way all
Uh,
plots are, you know.
uh,
I mean, there's
yeah.
only it's just it's not like it's a hugely novel plot or anything.
Uh-huh.
So I wouldn't say it's the plot necessarily. Although I was certainly interested in Crusade's portrayal
Uh-huh.
as a plot device. I mean, it's sort of that to me is interesting. Part of the plot is why does she do it? It's never fully explained in Chaucer. Is she just a total, meanie, or what are the reasons why she falls in love with this other guy? Is she just incredibly lonely? What is it? That goes unexplained. So I think that part of the plot is really fascinating.
Mhm.
Um, the characters themselves aren't. I mean, Pandros is probably my favorite character in the poem. Like I said, Troilus is a pain a lot of the times,
Mhm.
and seemingly pretty young. Crusade is kind of unfathomable and sometimes tiresome, but 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 smart, but sort of I don't know. So I think it was I think it was a little bit of all three, obviously, that drew me to them. And I love Chaucer's narrator in the poem.
Mhm.
I just think that's so interesting that it's. I mean, he says, he can't do anything to change the course of events, and he's just telling a story. And so he's sort of apologetic. Well, I'm so sorry that this happens, and forgive me, but
Yeah.
it's not my story. And I love that aspect of the tale too. That
Yeah. Narrator kind of has the most kind of latitude with regard to how they can address the reader and
mm-hmm.
they can speak
Yeah, yeah,
sort of frankly
yeah,
and
yeah. And he says, "Sorry, guys, I can't change anything. It happened. Of course, it didn't
yeah.
happen, but I can't change the story. Sorry." I know it's sad. I don't know why she did it. I don't know.
Yeah, and I get the sense that you have that kind of complicated relationship to the tale as well.
I think so. Yeah, definitely. Which is probably what kept me interested in it.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm glad you kept interested in it.
Well, thanks.
I think we're about ready to wrap up, so thanks
Okay.
for coming by, Fran.
Oh, thank you, Mike. I really appreciate it. It's great to talk to you and see you.
Yeah, it's good
Yeah.
to see you too.
Okay.
And I wanted to say once again, this is Fran Abati, and am I say is it Fran Abati or?
That sounds good to me.
Sorry.
No, it's perfect.
And the book is Troy Unincorporated from University of Chicago Press, and it's available at Woodland Pattern and perhaps at Boswell,
Perhaps.
or we're not sure.
I'm not sure yet. It
Well,
will be if it
go to
isn't.
Woodland Pattern.
Okay.
Go to Woodland Pattern. I shouldn't even have mentioned that other bookstore. It's a fine institution, but when you want poetry, you go to Woodland Pattern. Let's face it. So, thanks for coming on the show,
Thank you so
Fran.
much, Mike.
And I will see you next week when I have no idea what that show is going to be like. I might have a nervous breakdown or diarrhea or something, but we'll see what happens then. Goodbye.